Well, I was recently reminded of the nautical compass star through the work of a friend of mine. It makes a very striking inlay, and I've always wanted to try and put it together, and I think I've found a way to do it now. I figured out how to actually draw up a compass star, which you've just seen. And there it is. And I'd like to practice trying to inlay this star, because it's a very fiddly thing that I'm about to do. It's much easier to do in marquetry and very thin veneers, but in fact I want to make a fairly sizable piece of wood and inlay it into something like walnut or mahogany, and see how it works out. This is pretty much a practice project, and if it works out, then I might try and put it into some other presentation type pieces of cutting boards or cheese boards and things like that. So follow along. Since this is a practice piece, I'm going to use the sapwood as one color and the heartwood from a small piece of cocobolo that I've got. I really like cocobolo, but ordinarily I would throw the sapwood out, so I give it a try here. What I did not record was me copying the original diagram of the star so that I could cut each one of the individual triangles down and paste it onto the proper color strip of wood that I've just cut. So that the next step is to scroll saw it and then put it onto the rotary sander to get the absolute correct shape of the triangles up for the next step. Also, what's important here is the use of cardstock as opposed to just regular old copier paper, because copier paper is very easy to push out of proper shape, where cardstock is heavier duty and it doesn't push out of shape nearly as easily, so that the when you end up with your triangles, they're much more accurately shaped. So I've put together this little clamping device specifically to hold these very small pieces of wood somewhat securely, so that I can in fact put those into the rotary sander, or the spinning disc sander I guess is a better description, and sand that right down to the center of these lines. And I'm being quite precise about that. So I want to keep my fingers out of the way and make sure that that is nice and secure. And let's see how it works. I would say that is a very steady platform to do some pretty nice sanding. So I'm going to glue these up as sub-assemblies, and then we'll start going into an upper level sub-assembly. There are just too many little things to put together here to do it all at once. Well, this next part promises to be pretty tricky and fiddly. These are very close to being where they should be, but they're not quite there. So what I'm going to do is fit them on top of this to see where the parts are a little too large, and number one is a little too large on both sides. The point is well done, but they're encroaching on the other sides here. So I'm just going to have to be very delicate about taking a little bit, shave a little bit off these sides, and then I'm going to be gluing them down to this poster board, or cardstock I guess is a better description of it, and that's going to hold them all together. And then I'll cut it off the cardstock, and then I'll try and put them into another piece of wood. Well, I'm reasonably happy with all of those things going together like that. I think maybe it's time to glue them on down to that cardstock. I didn't record it, but all of the bottom surfaces got sanded to make sure that they were nice and flat. Well, I am very happy about how that glued up. But now it's time to take off the extra cardstock. Okay, since this is just a practice run, I decided to not put any effort into a box or something elaborate, and I just drew up what you would call a, I see it referred to as a perfect ellipse. I would call it a regular or a technical drawing type ellipse so that you can just draw very easily with a compass. Trace it out on this piece of soft maple and made sure that I have the ordnance so that I can line up my star, and I realized that I've been calling it what might be a very old name for this. Its more common name, I understand now, is a navigator's rose, and I like that name, and we'll probably start using it, but it's always been a star to me, and it's hard to break that habit. But I'm just going to go in deep enough, and it's going to be mostly hand tools. I may get the Dremel out and try and make a flat bottom on there once I get it all traced in. But I'm going to use double-sided tape to try and hold it in place just as well as I can. Then I'm going to use the scalpel to trace out the lines. I would like this to fit just as perfectly as possible, but we'll see what I got in me. Well, I've decided that I'm going to hog out the middle here with an 1.25" Forstner bit, and there's some of the original material, and that's 125 thousandths of an inch. So what I've done is, through several trials, that fits in there very sweetly. Just a little bit proud, perhaps. But that, if I do that, that gives me a nice big area to measure all of the other cutting that I'm going to be doing in there. And I can measure it against that so that I don't go too deep, or I don't shortchange myself and go too shallow. Now I really don't want to break the edges, although I do anticipate shaving that down a little bit with sandpaper. So I'm going to try and get a lot of this stuff out with the littlest tools I have. Well, this is a practice project, and the whole point of this practice project is to see how well I can carve out this piece of soft maple so that this very sharply defined star fits in with as little as possible space in between along the edges. There are times when I have had some difficulty doing that properly. I'm just a little bit large over here, but that's going to be very easy to fix. But it actually wasn't until I thought that I was done with my carving that I noticed this. And it must have happened very late in the process that I must have just caught a chisel slightly in there and lifted that piece out. And of course I have chips all over the floor and all over the bench, so I'll never find that one specifically to glue in. But what I do have is the original board that the oval came from, and I have a very nice spot earmarked, which is right here, that has a very good grain, and I can take off a piece that's an 1/8 inch thick, and I'll glue it down there once I clean that out and flatten it right down. And then I think this portion will be done. Well, this is the next day, and I think I can safely say that I'm pretty happy with that Dutchman that went in there. And this is in the same orientation, so that's the point that I replaced. So what I'm in the process of doing now is gluing up the getting ready to put the star in place, and I want a little film of glue both on the receiver and on the star. And I'm just using regular old PVA type glue. So this plaque is now at the 220 grit sandpaper stage, and it's looking pretty nice. And one of the things that I always judge on is how well the end grain has smoothed out during the paper or sanding process. And I kind of like this. Next stage is boiled linseed oil. And this has one coat of boiled linseed oil on it. And I'm not showing any of this because I did a video on this particular finish not long ago, and I'll put a link to that. It's a little more detailed, and I don't need to repeat that here. I'll let this sit here overnight, and then I'll hit it with some shellac and some wax tomorrow. So there it is. Not everyone is a trophy project, and this was not intended to be a trophy project. This was a practice project, and one I encourage you to do. This actually is going to go up on a wall, maybe in my office or some relatively out of the way place. I like this a lot. Quite honestly, the star is pretty well made. It isn't great in how it went into the maple, but it's pretty good. And by classic standards, the star ought to be stark black and stark white, and this is merging colors of brown, which on the end of it has worked out very well in my mind. I like this a lot. The next one is going to be a little more classical and more functional in what it is, because the star is not supposed to be the star of the project. It's supposed to be an embellishment to something else. And I've put my wife Linda on the project to tell me what she thinks it needs to be, and her first comment was a cheese board. And so I've decided that she needs to tell me what the dimensions are going to be. And I'm looking forward to doing it. Thanks for watching. I'm Tom Stevens. Come on back. Please give me a like. Share it if you think it's worthwhile. By all means, give me a comment. If you think it's good, let me know. If you think it's not good, let me know. And if you dislike it, it would be really nice if you told me why. Just don't give me a crappy old dislike and go away. Come on back. I'll have something again sometime pretty soon.